It was crazy. Like how many, I literally thought of the hospital as a second home. Every time they say, oh, we're going to the hospital, I'd be like, okay, yeah, let's go. I'll meet all my nurse friends, I'll do all this stuff. But I think it's kind of sad that I had to experience like going to the hospital and literally thinking of it as a second home, or a place where I just have to go to get tested out and get needles stuck in me and hope for the best. But after I was finally diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, it did change a bit. I got the medications I needed, but it still wasn't really enough. No matter what I did, I was still throwing up basically every day and doing all this stuff. My mom and dad would try giving me all these antibiotics, and they wouldn't do anything. And we were using the antibiotics for the right thing. We just didn't know at the time. So after I was diagnosed, basically how I was diagnosed actually is my lungs had gotten infected with pseudomonas and a bunch of other infections that I don't even know the name of, but there was a crazy amount of infections in my lungs.
Do you think it'd be okay?
And the doctors were trying to figure out what was going on. How did this child have so many infections? And how come our antibiotics aren't working for her? So after they figured out I had cystic fibrosis, they gave me my breathing sheets and told me to hope for the best and wait for some more medication to be sent to me. And sometimes the medication did work sometimes. Like the antibiotics they gave me would sometimes like heal me for a couple months, and I'd have a good, peaceful time at school. But after they stopped and I tried again, and it would just stop working. And I was so confused why I had to keep going to the hospital whenever I apparently had medications that would help me. And it was just overall a very stressful situation for me and my family. I wasn't as stressed as my parents probably were, because I didn't really know what was going on. I was just sort of going to the hospital and hoping for the best. I thought we were just kept going to the hospital because of how awesome it was. Because the hospital I go to is like Levine's Children's Hospital. They give you this amazing food, and all the people there are really, really nice. So I was just like, oh, I guess I'm going here now. Yeah, this has been fun. So and it was fun. They made sure that I had a good time, and I didn't know that how awful this situation really was for me, since they didn't really. No matter what they gave me, it wouldn't really help me that much. So eventually they gave me this thing called a PICC line. And a PICC line is this thing that they put into your arm. They put it into your arm. You can see these scars. That's sort of where they put it in my arm. And they put it in your arm, and they tried flushing out all your lungs with these sort of, like they just sort of make a concoction of antibiotic liquid, pour it into me and hope for the best. And sometimes they have to keep me in the hospital for like up to 10 days just to make sure that nothing happened to me. My liver didn't fail, nothing happened, and these things didn't have any negative effect to me. And most of the time at work, I get out of the hospital, but I'd still have to stay home for a month with this PICC line in my arm. So I'd always go back. Whenever I did go back to school, everyone was kind of like, all the other kids were kind of annoyed with me because they had to explain everything, and I wouldn't know anything that was going on. They'd be on a new subject, a new part of math, a new part of reading, and I didn't know what they were talking about. Everyone was always so like mad at me because I didn't know what they were talking about, and they were getting frustrated with having to keep explaining to me what they were talking about, what they were learning at the time, what projects they were working on, what I was supposed to be doing. And sometimes they just wouldn't explain, and I just had to sit there. And I get in trouble sometimes with my teachers because I didn't know that like they added some new rules or something, and I got in real trouble for something I didn't even know existed. It was just a very frustrating time for me because I didn't know why I didn't know all the stuff that they were talking about, and like they expected me to know it, even though like I came to the hospital. They'd give me like these little worksheets at the hospital and mail it to me, but that didn't really tell me what they were talking about in the classroom. So whenever I got back into the classroom, it was just an overall awful experience to try and reorientate myself into this classroom, just to be thrown back into the hospital again. And it was just an overall awful experience. Another thing that would usually most often happen to me is a bronchoscopy. And basically they put a tube down my throat and suck all the mucus out of my lungs, since there's so much mucus that they didn't know what to do with. And they'd have to put this tube down my throat while I was sleeping and suck it all out. And it was a very painful procedure that I'm glad I haven't had to do recently. So there was a lot of surgery going on as a child. No one really, until I got diagnosed, no one knew what was wrong with me. And I was constantly throwing up and gagging and doing all this awful stuff that would happen to me. So I just really wanted to ask you here today to please pass pass this pastor act, and co-sponsor it, because I don't really know how much longer my lungs can take getting all this, like, with all this mucus and stuff that I really want, that I need this stuff fixed, man. Or else I don't know how long me and my brother will live. So I just wanted to ask you to do that for us today. Sorry if I'm getting a bit emotional, but I just wanted to ask that of you for today. And that's all I really had to say.